Welcome to Ancient Geeks, a podcast from a couple of geeks of a certain age. From our youth to present day, we look at the development of fantasy and science fiction culture and all its manifestations. We were geek before it was chic. I am your co-host, Stephen Taylor, and please don't call me Tiny.
And I'm your co-host, Tom, Mr. Adventure Grant.
Excellent. Today on Ancient Geeks, we're talking about Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. So how are you today, Tom?
I'm doing fine, except for the cold that I still have. How about you?
Oh, that's not fun.
Yeah.
I am cold free at the moment, and doing quite well. So, the top of the show is our question: what are you doing this week in geekery?
Well, so as I sent you the picture of it, I dug my copy of the Elric board game out of storage just for fun, since we just did the Elric episode. And I don't know if I'm going to play it or not, but it's just one of those nice things to review and get a little choked up with nostalgia. That
It was the dust.
It was the dust. That was it. That was the dust and the cold. It was co-designed by Greg Stafford, and that's a guy I'd love to talk about someday. Like if we ever get around to doing more role-playing games than D&D. Interesting man, a very bright teenager who became fascinated with the mythologies of many different cultures and decided to mash them up or use them as inspiration for the role-playing game RuneQuest.
Was it a monster mash?
No, it was not. Well, there were monsters and there was chaos, as I mentioned in the last episode in RuneQuest, but apropos of Elric and Moorcock. But anyway, so that's probably the geekiest thing I was doing that I'll admit to. How about you?
We'll keep the secret geekery to itself.
Yes.
I started listening to this week. Of course, when this comes out, it would have been out for several weeks. There's an audio podcast / narrative podcast from Star Trek called Star Trek Con.
Yeah.
It's based on a story that Nicholas Myers had written together. I think at one point it might have been planned to be a TV miniseries. So it's supposedly exploring Khan during his time on City Alpha 5.
Yes.
And the first episode was actually pretty good. So I would recommend that, at least to this point.
Well, actually, getting ahead of ourselves, when I was doing research for this episode, that before they settled on doing this storyline for Star Trek 3, there was the people at Paramount were kicking around the idea of doing a Khan prequel to Star Trek 2.
I missed that one. I missed that.
That's crazy.
I saw a different storyline about the Vulcans being upset about Genesis. That was interesting. I'd never read that before.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, actually, in the category of what have you been doing lately, you should mention there are a couple of new posts on the Substack. I mean,
That's true.
You did a great post about criticism of New Trek.
I did.
Is it officially spelled N-E-W or N-U?
See, I know people. I'm not sure if the N-U is supposed to be somewhat insulting, so I just stuck with N-E-W. But yes, right. I've seen New Trek and New Who as being delineators. I don't know. I just went with the plain old English because I'm boring.
Yeah, and I did a post about how geekery back in the day and through today, that it has a very sociable community, a very welcoming community, all stereotypes about loners in their basements aside.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, the geek world is exactly the opposite, and I had just sort of a strong desire to plant my flag on that particular hill because I think that's one of the things about geek culture that's so attractive.
Yes. Except maybe in some online forums. Anyway.
Yes. Which wasn't the case in the face-to-face forums.
That's right.
I mean, they were weird people. I mean, actually,
they were weird
Harlan
people.
Ellison gave a talk at a convention one time about just, let's be fair. There are some toxic people in fandom way back in the 1970s.
Yes. Yes.
But, even so, I mean, most of the people were always very friendly and happy that you were joining the circle of geekdom. And
the circle of geek.
Circle of geekdom.
Anyway.
You hold up the young geek to the skies and welcome him or her to the geek world.
Exactly. So, getting on to other top questions, what theme music did you choose for today's episode?
Well, I picked James Horner's Klingon theme, which
that's great.
Weaves in and out of scenes of the movie. I just love that music. How about you?
So as I said in our Star Trek II episode, I really like James Horner's work on both movies, and there's soundtracks that I've listened to my entire life. And I had the vinyl soundtrack at the time, and it came with an additional single EP. Basically, it was a large,
Mhm.
33 and a half RPM disc, but it had one song on it. It was just called "Search for Spock." And my guess, and I've never been able to confirm this, is it was the theme that Horner wanted to use for the movie but did not use.
Hmm.
It is a up tempo version of the sort of Vulcan theme that runs through the movie. So if
Okay.
you think about the mind meld music, you can see that they're related in some way, but it's up tempo. It has a very kind of 80s techno feel to
Huh.
part of it. And it's one of those songs that I like to play. It hypes me up when I'm going to do writing or working or just going to. I just really like it. It's in some ways maybe musically not the height of Horner's work, but I really really enjoy it. You can find it on YouTube. It's just called The Search for Spock, and it has a very sort of dramatic opening. It really does feel like it was supposed to be the theme of the movie.
And it's all instrumental.
It's all instrumental,
Because you said
but there's some
song, and I
guitars
was
in it.
wondering if there were
Well,
lyrics.
track. There's no
I'm
yeah.
searching.
I'm
I'm
searching
searching
for
for
Spock. Yeah, no.
Spock.
Oh my
No.
God.
Shh.
Searching for Spock.
I mean,
Yeah.
it can't be worse than the words to the original
Oh
Star
no,
Trek
no, no.
theme.
Oh, indeed. No, but no. It is an instrumental. It's one track that hence song.
That's
And
fascinating.
it
I had
has
never heard of that before.
a very interesting sort of because there's some guitar. It's a little more contemporary. It's a sort of mixture of kind of techno orchestral and a little more contemporary feeling than you would get from a typical movie soundtrack of the era. So yeah, it's worth checking out. I enjoy it very much.
Excellent.
Alrighty then. So let's talk about this third Star Trek movie. And we're going to spoil the entire film. If you haven't seen Star Trek 3, what are you doing listening to this?
We're heartless about that way about
That's right.
spoiling things that are
That
40 years
from when we were in
old.
high school,
Yeah.
when I was in high school. Anyway, so Star Trek 3, I'll give it a little brief synopsis to remind anybody who doesn't remember everything about it. And then we're going to do like we do with the other two films, kind of go storyline by storyline and talk about the film. Star Trek 3 starts immediately after, well, almost immediately after Star Trek 2. I'm not quite, I forget exactly if it ever say how much time has passed.
But
But
it's
not,
hours,
it's
days. Yeah.
days. I always assume about it, long enough for Savick and David to be reassigned to the Grissom and for the Enterprise to be repaired enough to go home.
Right. So weeks maybe.
Yeah, at tops.
Yeah.
So in the movie, we know there are three main storylines really that all intersect. One is the Enterprise returning to Earth, finding out that McCoy has some kind of problem that relates to Spock and a mind meld, and that we find out later that his Katra or his soul has been put into McCoy and it needs to be returned to Vulcan. That we find out that the Genesis planet's being surveyed by the Grissom, another Federation starship where David and Savick have been assigned, and then there are some Klingons who were very keen to get their hands on the secret of Genesis, all of which leads to Kirk not being allowed to go back to Genesis because it's been declared a planet forbidden by the Federation Council because of the sensitive nature of the science. But Kirk decides he has to steal the Enterprise to then take hopefully retrieve Spock's body and return Spock and McCoy to Vulcan to solve this Katra problem. And meanwhile, the Klingons have blown up the Grissom and are trying to steal the secrets of Genesis, which eventually leads to a battle that leads to the destruction of the Enterprise and the eventual triumph of the crew and the reunification of Spock with his soul. Am I missing anything really important there, Tom?
No, I think that sums it up pretty well.
So Star Trek 3 is, again, this direct sequel to Star Trek 2. I quite like this movie. I was going to ask at the end, but I'll go ahead and ask it now. There's this trope in Star Trek movies that the odd number ones are bad, I think, which is the motion picture, The Search for Spock, and Star Trek 5. What do you think about that trope as it pertains to this film?
So when I was a kid, I remember seeing this poster somewhere. For some reason, I think it's at a Shakey's Pizza. I don't know why it would be there, but it's stuck in my mind as a
Sure.
Shakey's Pizza. That showed like the amazing coincidences between Lincoln and Kennedy.
Right,
That.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember
Got it.
that? Do you
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah. So I think that the whole even versus odd Star Trek trope is as dumb as that poster. It's just, it's meaningless. I think this is
It's
a terrific movie.
it is a terrific movie. So yeah, I mean, sure, I agree that Star Trek 2, 4, and 6 are quite good, but I think Star Trek 3 is
Yeah,
quite good too.
yeah.
Um,
But our
so
brains want to put order on
that's
things
right.
when they're not there, and it's definitely not there. This is a good movie.
Yeah. So how did you first encounter this movie?
Well, after Star Trek II, of course, we were all wondering what was going to happen, and I certainly felt like they were going to try to bring Spock back.
Yes.
I know that in reality, actually, behind the scenes, Leonard Nimoy was still wrestling with his Spockness
Hmm.
as an actor. But did you feel that way? Did you think that they were going to bring him back?
I thought that that mind meld scene just screamed some kind of and the torpedo tube soft landing on the planet.
Yeah,
That just even I guess when I was an eighth grade or whatever, it just seemed clear to me that they were leaving the door open to bring him back.
right. But well, like people like Harv Bennett and Leonard Nimoy and others said that they actually didn't know, which
Right.
surprised me. So I was reading the Star Trek 50-year mission book one, the first 25 years, and they all claimed that when Nimoy did the remember scene at the
Hmm.
end of Star Trek 2, that they had no idea what remember meant.
So yeah, I so here's what I've read over time, and then that sparks a memory about a Harv Bennett interview that I listened to many, many, many years ago. Um, I know that the original version of the story, Spock died earlier, and that
Mhm.
leaked out, and they reformatted part of the story. And in fact, the whole Kobayashi Maru thing at the beginning is supposed to be a fake out that Spock dies in this movie,
Right.
but then he's not really dead. Um, I do know that they were not sure for certain if he would come back, but what I remember, this is a near on 40-year-old memory now. Harv Bennett was on, which you mentioned before, the show Hour 25, which was a Southern California radio
Mhm.
show. And he said in that interview that they filmed, and you can tell by if you pay attention to the movie that is clearly sort of filmed later. That close up on McCoy's face,
Right.
and that scene he said they did it so they'd have an open. I can't remember how he put it, but basically it was they didn't know for sure what it meant, but it was an opening for something if they wanted it.
Yeah.
And that I do know that part of the deal for Nimoy to come back as Spock was that he got to direct the film.
Yeah. Good for him to
And
parlay
that's right. And that
into
was,
into the director's chair.
and I think that was the thing that led to this opening. And of course, he got to direct this and Star Trek 4, and he did a good job in both of them.
Mhm.
So, yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes going on. But I
Right.
think quite clearly they didn't know for sure, but they you don't show the mind meld scene, the the tube landing on the planet
Right.
with that sort of loving flyover of the tube, and then that lead to Spock doing the space, the final frontier monologue at the end of the movie,
Mhm.
and not at least make it feel like, yeah, maybe he could come back.
Yeah.
And there's that whole scene on the bridge about, I've got to come back to this place and life from lifelessness and all this kind of stuff. It's
So this is where I think my reaction or my anticipation of the next movie was certainly colored by my geek context.
sure.
So I thought when he said remember, I thought, well, is this like when when Spock mind melds with Kirk in an episode of the original series and he's trying to get Kirk to forget something?
Right.
I thought it would maybe it's been something like that. But I also at the same time, this is the other geek side of things. It's like being a comics reader and how often comic books would
Right.
bring back supposedly dead characters. It's like,
Right.
oh, well, actually, they're probably going to bring it back somehow. But we were all very excited. I mean, this is the era when Star Trek movies became an event.
Yeah, they were.
So the motion picture stumbled, and
But
as
it
we
was an
talked about,
event. There
but it
was
was
an
an
event,
event.
though.
It was an event, and then Star Trek Two really solidified that these are movies that a lot of people want to go see. And
That's right.
so, as again, like we said this before, you'd go to your multiplex, you'd line up, for the movie
Yes.
on opening day if you were a real fan. And anyway, it was a thing, and that was certainly how I experienced the first day of watching this movie. And then I did go back and rewatch it in the theater, like maybe like the following week, because it was so much fun. I really enjoyed this movie.
Right. So this movie came out. I had moved to California from Texas
Mhm.
in the previous year in the winter. So I hadn't been in California even a year yet. I went with a neighbor. I don't know that he cared about Star Trek, but he was willing to go to the movies with me, so I was happy to go. I'm not sure he'd seen Wrath of Khan, to be honest.
Okay.
Um, but I distinctly remember being in the movie theater and just being very excited when it began, and being sort of drawn into the. I like, and I don't know if it was a Nimoy's idea or what, but that essentially the previously on version at the beginning where it sort of fades in from the small focus on Kirk and Spock in the engineering,
Yes.
and it starts small, gets bigger, and it's desaturated, and it gets more colorful and more and louder, and then I
Oh,
just
that was brilliant. I mean,
yeah, I thought it was really
I
really
thought it
good.
was brilliant at the time, and on the rewatch the other day, I was really struck by it because it was a fantastic segue into the trauma that everybody was still feeling. I
Yes,
mean, there's something
agreed.
weird and unnatural about that opening with the
Yes,
tiny screen,
yes,
that, in black and white that does, kind of gradually get bigger and more colorful. I thought that was fantastic. I don't know whose idea that
yeah, it
was,
was really
but
really well
yeah,
done,
yeah.
well done. So we'll go through from here, and I'm going to take some liberty with the scene order, and because some of these they're basically storylines, and then there's scenes, and some of these I'm going to compress. So let's start off talking about the very very beginning, the Enterprise coming home, uh, docking with Space Dock, seeing the Excelsior,
Hmm.
and being told the Enterprise is going to be decommissioned. What were your impressions about this scene, or what are there things about this scene you'd like to talk about?
I'm glad they didn't take too long.
Yes,
It kind of moved quickly to establish their back, and now it's unclear what their future will be.
yes,
Which again is sort of a continuation of what we're feeling as an audience. Like, where
agreed.
is this movie actually going to go? Where are these characters going to go? And it was kind of cool to seeing the Excelsior for the first time. The
What did you think of the Excelsior design at the time?
Oh, I liked it. Did you
Okay.
like it?
Um, I think I was a little put off by it to a degree. And again, to go back to that Harv Bennett interview that sticks in my head after all
Yeah.
these years, he described it as a pregnant guppy. So, but it certainly becomes an iconic Star Trek starship, and hangs
Yes.
around for quite some time, and in fact becomes the Enterprise B. But no, I was excited by this part. I was excited by more starships, right? One of the
Right.
things that, and I'm struck by this watching these movies. We talked about it a little bit in Star Trek, the motion picture in particular, because of the lack of budget for models, there were
Hmm.
so few ships on screen. So one, seeing any other ship was always exciting. A different ship was like amazing.
Right.
But it also created this rather weird circumstance that's been somewhat affected by subsequent shows and even in the prequels, in that they can now afford to have a bunch of ships on screen, which really in some ways makes more sense, right? There would be
Yeah.
more ships in a fleet.
Hmm.
But if you take TOS, where there are only 12 Constitution class ships canonically, and theoretically other ships we never see,
Hmm.
and then Star Trek One, where somehow there's only one ship at Earth when this cloud is coming, or on this in this episode in this movie, excuse me, there's like one other starship in space dock somehow. It's like, boy, Starfleet was really sparse back in the day.
Well, yes, but I didn't mind it when I was watching the original
No, at the
series
time, no.
because unlike the other Star Treks, except for maybe the animated series, there was always the sense that Starfleet was pretty thinly spread out. You know, the galaxy's a big place, and
Yes.
the Enterprise was often positioned as they're exploring the frontier.
Yes.
There's nobody else out there to help them. Communications are slow. That it was really these are like people Horatio Hornblower style
Mhm.
who are on a ship far at sea, without anything there to help them on, just vastness of space or the ocean or whatever.
No, that part I totally agree with, and in some
Yeah,
ways I wish that I felt like there were times even with TNG that it didn't feel that way in ways that
right.
I wish that it had, and I would say that I wish Stranger Worlds felt that way more than it does.
Okay.
My point, which is where they create the problem for themselves, is when you go back to Earth
Hmm.
and there's like one ship in orbit,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
that makes
yeah.
no freaking sense
Right.
whatsoever, really.
Right. It's like when there's one superhero defending New York.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Right.
you know in the back of your mind that it's not because it makes any logical sense. It's because budget constraints are the reason it's the case.
Yeah. Well, let me go back to the Excelsior for a moment.
Yes, please.
So I thought it was a good idea to make it look really different. I didn't think of it
Oh,
as a
I do agree with
pregnant
that.
guppy, but now
Right.
I'm going to have that stuck in my
I'm
brain.
sorry.
Thank you very much.
It's Harv Bennett's
Um,
fault.
but it was, a good way of conveying what they were saying about the Excelsior is the next generation
Yes. The
of
Great Experiment.
vessels, the great experiment, and you'd expect it to look
Oh, I agree.
somehow different. So, having said next generation, how did you feel about the next generation Enterprise the first time you saw it?
I I like the D, but I just like the Constitution class so much better. It's still
Mhm.
I don't know. It's the sort of smoother, broader part of the sort of the Star Drive section.
Yeah,
I like it fine, but it's not aesthetically as pleasing to me as some other ships.
yeah. But again, it's another
But
generation. Yeah,
I fully accept that this should look different, and I didn't want it to look exactly the same. And I liked the ship.
because it's like the uniforms, right? They did
Yeah.
something really different with the
Hmm.
uniforms in Star Trek 2 and continued it through this generation of movies.
Yep. Agreed.
All right.
Agreed. Um, well, a couple of from this section, I really did like the scene where the ship pulls into space dock, and there's a cameo from Janice Rand, but that's sort of just an Easter egg. But this the
Hmm.
whole idea of the way in which they just see the damage and the way they're just all
Right.
reacting, I thought was pretty cool. And a silly observation is that Kramer's lawyer Jackie Childs is the guy that asks Kirk whether there's going to be a ceremony for them when they get back to Earth. But anyway, maybe
Okay.
there'll be lattes. Anyway, just to put
Well,
a bow.
so since we did a recent episode on fan service, when you
Yes.
saw Grace Lee Whitney, it
Hmm.
was a nice little nod for
Yes.
people who knew who she was and could
Right.
recognize her. But they didn't overdo it, right? And there
Agreed.
are other things like that in this movie and in the next one that are nice, kind of quick little dots, or like when Kirk says, "How many fingers am I holding up?"
Yes.
Like if your friend that you saw this with, your
Oh
neighbor,
yeah.
didn't get that joke, that's
Yeah. Yeah.
fine. Yeah,
Or the triples on the table in the
right.
bar. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agreed. So let's talk about Klingons, right?
Hmm.
So that I'm pushing two different scenes together, but we go to this freighter, and there's this female Klingon, and this bird of prey decloaks, and she's a spy. She's gotten this the data, and of course once the Krug finds out, the Klingon commander played by Christopher Lloyd, who I thought was great in this movie,
Yeah. Playing
finds
very
out
against type, because we all
yes,
knew him just as the
Reverend
guy on
Jim,
Taxi. Yeah.
yeah,
The kooky guy, the Kramer like guy of his
yes.
generation.
I mean, Christopher Lloyd had a really wild career in the 80s, right? So he's
Yeah.
Krug. He helps really. I want to talk a little bit about how this really sets the tone for Klingons going forward.
Oh, yeah.
He's also Doc Brown in the Back to the Future movies. In a couple of weeks, we're gonna talk about Buckaroo Banzai. He plays a villain in that. It's pretty crazy. So, But I think somebody and I can't fully take credit for this because you watch all this stuff and over time and you don't really think about it necessarily in its evolutionary context. But really, when you think about TNG era forward Klingons, so much of it, not all of it, because there's still some things about this that are a little odd, but so much of it really draws from this movie, right? This whole sort of the honor stuff kind of starts here in
Right.
ways that didn't really exist. I mean, there's a little bit of it in Day of the Dove, perhaps, in the TOS third season episode. But really, like, there are only, well, there's three main Klingon stories in TOS, and there are a handful of smaller Klingon stories. And mostly they're just kind of mustache twirling bad guys, right?
Right. You don't find anything out about the Klingons at
No.
all.
But just this whole idea that because she has seen this intel and
Hmm.
and she understands that means she has to die. And she's done her mission and she's performed with honor and then Krug doesn't like it, but it's got to be done.
Hmm.
And sort of the weird mix of the violence of the Klingons in this, I think, is it builds on things maybe were implied before, but were really is amplified in this setting. Um,
Yeah, there were more things we saw in this movie that we had not seen before in the Star
mhm.
Trek universe than in Star Trek 2. And I
Correct.
remember at the time just being a little awestruck at that. So
Right.
you saw the space dock and
Yes.
this massive space dock, and you said,
Hmm.
"Whoa, that does make sense that they might have such a thing, but wow, that's amazing." Or the first time, the bird of prey decloaks.
Yes.
That was a stunning moment. And then all the things we get to see about the Klingons on that ship are terrific.
Yes.
Including the very, very unforgiving chain of command.
Yes. That's what I'm talking about with the violence. Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty rough. A couple of things that one from the lore, but also again from that Harv Bennett interview that this keeps coming back to me.
Hmm.
He purposely had the officers speak English and speak Klingon to the crew, kind of like
Right.
apparently some World War II examples of where the crew might speak the officers might speak French while they speak their other language with their I forget what now my memory's failing me whether it was a Russian or German example. There was some specific example where the officers would speak a different language because it would keep them from the crew from understanding what they were saying.
Right.
And also there was an early drafts of the script. It was supposed to be a Romulan ship, and hence the bird of prey motif.
Right. It's supposed to be Romulans, not Klingons at
Yeah,
all. Yeah.
Romulans, and then at some
Yeah.
point, then maybe the Klingons had stolen a Romulan ship, but then it just kind of
Well, thank
became.
goodness they decided to do the Klingons.
I agree.
I mean, they could have done something really fun with the Romulans, but I think the Klingons provided, a lot better material at this point in kind of the evolution of Star Trek. And how deftly they set everything up. I
Yes.
have to say, not a lot of exposition, just sort of you got the sense like this bird of prey is really sort of a privateer vessel almost that's, kind of running without a lot of supervision that Krug could just say, well, let's go into the Federation and grab this Genesis thing. It was just so good in that
Yeah, it was
sense,
very good. It
or
was very
like
good.
it also made them very understandable in just one scene. The one
Yes,
where he says, "Oh yes, imagine you're on it's a sunny
that's
day,
right.
your best girl at your side, the
Yeah,
flag of the Federation fluttering in the
yeah.
breeze." And
It's I
that was
love that
just
scene.
terrific. Yeah.
I always, for some reason, it always sticks to me the part where they watch the thing and he's asking their opinions and
Mhm.
Maltz, who of course is Dan from Night Court because this is the sitcom Klingons.
Right.
But he was impressive. They can make
Yes.
planets.
Mm.
That's when he gets that whole sarcastic response about the flag of the Federation waving, and I thought it was really good.
Also, just like even ways, I'm sorry, I'm really am enthusing a bit much about this,
Enthused as you like.
but that even like the Klingons speak differently to each other than we're used to with like Federation crew, like where,
Yes.
you know, they watch the video about the Genesis device that they've stolen, and then he just says to his officers, "Speak."
Yes,
That
that's right.
just little things like that I thought were
Oh,
terrific.
I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah.
So then we have a set of scenes about the Grissom, which is this science vessel, another new starship, which is cool to see.
Hmm.
Although how you get from the saucer section to the star drive section just always baffled me. But anyhow, that's just silly nerdness that after a time you look at. Anyway, we have right here though a series of themes which are nerd captains, right? Because Captain
Yes.
Esteban is a very cautious captain,
Hmm.
to put it mildly. We have here Robin Curtis replacing Kirstie Alley as Savick. What were your thoughts about Robin Curtis as Savick?
She was okay. I
I
I,
did.
I miss Kirstie Alley.
I agree. I agree.
I'll confess, I had a little crush on Kirstie Alley from The Wrath of Khan. I'm like, okay, she's fine, but she was, I think there's just a whole different vibe from Robin
Correct.
Curtis. It's
Correct.
very unemotional Vulcan.
More straightforward
Uh,
Vulcan
yeah,
characterization. Correct.
yeah,
I agree. I mean, I like Robin Curtis fine,
yeah,
but yeah, I would have preferred Kirstie Alley staying in the role. Um, there are one of my favorite little scenes. It's not well. That's too strong. But there are a couple of times with some great side eye acting in this movie, and one of
yes,
them is when they radio back to this ship that they think that the Genesis wave has revived Captain Spock, and the helmsman gives this side eye look to the captain. It's
right.
fantastic, which I attribute to Nimoy's directing.
Yeah, well, Robin Curtis, actually, to be fair to her, did a little bit of side eye or eye rolling or whatever. It's like, yes, Captain, we'll be very careful.
Oh yeah, no, no.
Yeah,
She's like in a Vulcan way, very disdainful of David's, over enthusiasm, and
right.
then and also like, dude, to Esteban, it's pretty good. I agree with that.
Hmm.
Okay, so we go back to Earth, and Sarek comes a calling, and interrupts a little wake for
Well,
Spock in
actually,
Kirk's apartment. Please.
before we get there, I think the whole that scene where we find out that there's something wrong with McCoy was really good.
Yes.
That he's in
Oh yeah, I meant to
Spock's
mention that.
quarters, and
Yeah.
we don't know what's really going on there. It's one of these disturbing moments in the setup. Something's definitely not right. We don't know yet
No,
what it
I
is, and
agree.
then that he's there, and we hear Spock's voice coming out of
Right.
him.
Right.
That was really good.
Yeah, and he's talking about going to Vulcan and climbing Mount
Yeah,
Salea and all this stuff. And yeah, no, that was I meant to talk about that, and I got myself sidetracked probably by Jackie Childs. But yeah, it
yeah.
it really is a really good scene.
Because like
And
the first 20 minutes of the movie just feels like everything's falling apart.
yes,
They don't know
agreed.
where they're going. They're not allowed to, kind of push for anything on their own. The Starfleet and the Federation councils in a tizzy,
Hmm.
and then okay, now McCoy is a basket case.
Yeah, McCoy's is
Yeah,
something's wrong with him, and
mhm.
DeForest Kelly does a very good job acting in this movie, I
Yeah.
think.
There's good acting in this movie,
Yeah. So
including Shatner. We'll get to.
yeah, Shatner did a good job in this movie.
Yeah.
So Sarek shows up. So Mark Leonard is reprising his role as Spock's father, Ambassador Sarek from Vulcan, and he's upset that they didn't bring Spock's Katra back as they were supposed to do. And Kirk's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Hmm.
And they have a great, the mind meld scene, I think, and I mentioned this to you offline the other day. I thought from a direction wise was really well done. The way in which they focused on the eyes and the mouth and the
Hmm.
music, and it was, I think, very well done. And they, he thought that Spock would have mind melded with Kirk, but he didn't do this because apparently, kind of like to make a cross genre reference, like the Matrix on Gallifrey, they would store the minds of dead Vulcans in whatever they stored them in, and that Spock was supposed to be brought back in that sense and put to rest at Vulcan. Then they figure out that that's what's wrong with McCoy. And then we go through a series of scenes and we can deal with specifics in a moment. But Kirk wants a ship to go to Genesis, but Admiral Morrow says that's not happening. And of course, this is one of my favorite scenes in the movie where after he talks to the Admiral, he meets up with Sulu and Chekhov and they say, "What's the word?" The word is
Hmm.
no. I am therefore going anyway, which
Right.
again sort of adds this whole Kirk legend that we talked about in the Star Trek II episode. McCoy tries to hire a ship. They have to break McCoy out of jail, and they eventually steal the Enterprise. Now, of course, there's a lot to talk about in that section. But what are your what where would you like to start?
Well, I mean, that was, I think, a good establishment of what the main theme of this movie is about
Yes,
friendship and the
yes,
things we're willing to do for the people whom we love. I mean, that was that one scene there. But we're going anyway.
yes.
That I'm putting this above the wishes of Starfleet and perhaps even my career.
Yeah, because there's before he says that, right? He's sitting there and he's being lectured to by Morrow in the officers' lounge, and
Yeah.
there's this point where Morrow is saying, your career stands for, whatever he says, reason and all this kind of stuff, and you can see in Shatner's face, he's already decided, well, screw
Yes.
this, I've got to find another way to make this work if you're not going to let me do it the way I'm asking for it.
Right.
And yeah, I think the theme of friendship is quite key in this film, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more at the end when we do an overall assessment. I'll go ahead and I made a reference to it a second ago, but I'll go and make the explicit connection. I think there's a very interesting story arc for Kirk's character that starts in Star Trek One, but is not well developed, as we talked
Hmm.
about at the time. That is better put forward in Star Trek Two, which is this whole issue of what his best destiny is, whether you should be captaining a starship or not, or be behind a desk, and all the degree to which, and the other part of that storyline, which is really in Star Trek Two, which is this of the legend of Kirk's capacity to overcome a no-win scenario, right?
Right.
And I think this all converges in this movie quite ably. Not only is we're seeing here that friendship becomes actually more important to him than supposedly the most important thing to him, which was his career. He's willing to sacrifice that in
Hmm.
this movie to accomplish this goal for Spock. And also the whole concept that Kirk has the capacity to make happen whatever he wants to happen, a la the whole no-win scenario scene in Star Trek Two, I think is being played out again here in this series of scenes.
Right.
So, is there anything you want to say about the McCoy tries to hire a ship scene or the breaking him out
Oh, it
of?
was fun. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that really the the other thing I'll say about this movie, and I was feeling this very strongly on the rewatch, was that this is when the Star Trek movies were really fun. And
Yes.
so you could, and by fun, I don't mean silly.
No.
It's just that they had this really terrific balance of the serious and the comical, and
Hmm.
the familiar and the new, and just all sorts of things that they just kind of balanced exactly right. And so that scene in the bar, it's a nice little aside. It
Yes.
kind of sets up the breakout from the brig that the other characters have to do for McCoy.
Right.
But in and of itself, it was just like a fun little scene. You had a Star Wars cantina like a callback, and
Right.
you got to see a little bit of kooky, crazy stuff from the Star Trek world in
Yes.
a cantina scene like that. And the guy who was the contact who was going to smuggle him,
Yes.
um, he was funny. I
Oh
mean,
yeah. Your
yeah.
planet, welcome. Yeah.
you know, how can you not understand me with ears that big?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. 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 The
Yeah.
I will. Well, I have one thing to say about that scene specifically, but I will say this, and I did notice it on this rewatch. There is, for a movie that is ostensibly a serious film about life and death,
Right.
um, it's like a joke a minute in this. This series is jokes or quips or humorous asides that
Yes.
don't derail the story. They're not like
Oh
silly,
God, no.
but from things like the word is no, I am therefore going anyway, which is not a joke, but it is
Right.
humorous. To the whole and even the things that in that scene with McCoy, that there's two jokes actually that are also though helping us remember what's going on in the story, right? Where
Right.
the waitress asks him about what's his poison, and he says to expect one to order poison in a bar is illogical. Like his brain's all kind of messed up. When he's not ordering his own drink, he's ordering some Spock would order,
Right.
and he's like, and then I love the line, which I think encapsulates the whole situation. When the security guy offers him a ride home, he goes, "Where's the logic in offering me a ride home, you idiot?" It's this
Yeah.
weird combo, right? If I wanted
Right.
to ride home, would I be trying to charter a space flight? It's a great. I just the you idiot part, kind of like it's Spock and McCoy all at the same time, which I thought was clever and also
Yeah.
amusing, right?
That's a great point. Yeah.
And he tries to do the Vulcan neck pitch, it doesn't
Oh
work.
yeah,
And
that's
it's like,
funny.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, then he gets arrested and they break him out of jail. Anything about breaking him out of jail? And you already mentioned the how many fingers am I holding up joke, which is also
Oh yeah, yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. Well, that green-blooded son of a bitch.
Yes.
I mean,
It's his,
that the theater erupted at
yeah,
that
it's his
when
revenge for all
I
those
saw it.
arguments he lost. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
I mean that was fantastic. So such good writing,
But yeah,
and
that's
again, which didn't diminish the excitement level,
no,
right?
no.
So this movie's not like a nonstop roller coaster ride, but there were a lot of really exciting, suspenseful scenes, and but it's all centered on the people, right?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, but if you think about it, right, like I said, you've got from the bar scene, you've got the Spock McCoy, at least two or three jokes, the two lines on
Right.
the neck pinch. You've got the whole thing with the alien. You've
Yeah.
got, and it's like really is this serious and story-driven humor, and then you get in the jail scene, the keeping you busy thing, the banter with Kirk and McCoy, the don't call me tiny thing, and then you get Mr.
Yeah.
Adventure and
Mr. Adventure. So again, and a shout out to Nichelle Nichols there
yes,
for a great scene, right?
yes,
Her side eye to Mr.
yes,
Adventure
yes,
is
yeah,
pretty great. And
it
then like
is.
when she's like programming the transporter
Yes,
and it's kind of saying, I'm not going to do anything. You're going to get in the closet.
that's
It's-
right. Yeah, and then from the time that they beam out,
yeah.
I think this starts one of my favorite scenes in all of Star Trek.
Oh my God. I've watched this scene on YouTube countless times. Just it's one of those things, like one of these tonics. It's like if I need a little pick me up, there are certain
Yes,
scenes from movies I'll go to, and this is one of those. Just the stealing of the Enterprise.
from the moment it changes to the Enterprise in space dock and the lights
Yeah,
start to come on and the music starts to play,
yeah,
it is from that to the moment they warp out is just a phenomenal scene,
yeah.
right?
Your blood is racing.
Yeah,
The Enterprise is backing in, but the towards the space doors that are not opening yet, and that funny line about oh, and now it's like, oh,
that's right.
well, guess Admiral, I'm working on
Yeah,
it.
the doors,
Yeah,
Mr. Scott. I know.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
No,
know,
but
I
again,
know.
if you watch it, again, it's a series of these sort of story-driven jokes and quips and humorous
Right.
moments in the middle of a serious thing. From the moment, Scotty on the Excelsior and he's griping at the elevator, and
Right.
then, one of my favorite lines in the movie is yellow alert. How can you have a yellow alert in space dock?
Well, yeah, and also, we have to give a nod to James Sicking,
Yes, he does a great
who
job.
what was really definitely best known for Hill Street Blues,
Right.
where he played the head of the SWAT unit in the police precinct, and he was the same kind of character.
Yes.
But that little touch of him with the baton,
Yeah, he had that
that was
riding
great.
crop thing.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
that,
He was another, again, non-Kirkian captain. Not as nerdy as Esteban, but clearly kind of obnoxious.
yeah. What an
Um,
amazing machine.
that's right. And so, yeah, and you're going through all this, and there is the seriousness of it, right? And again, to the
Yeah,
whole theme about Kirk making choices
right.
when what's the captain's name? I'm blanking now. I can only think of his
Oh, I
real
can't
name.
remember. Yeah.
Um,
Captain
he's
Styles.
Styles. He
Yeah.
says, if you do this, Kirk, you'll never sit in the captain's chair again, right? Which is the stakes for Kirk are huge, right? Is again, it pertains to the last two movies,
Well, and
and
he's talking to Kirk in a sort of almost like bemused way,
yeah,
and he's not saying, Captain Kirk or Admiral
oh yeah,
Kirk. He's saying, Kirk,
yeah,
if
yeah,
you do this,
yeah,
it's like if you were like sitting, at lunch with somebody who's a friend and they're talking about doing something really stupid,
yeah.
and you're trying to, try to understand, like, walk me through your thinking on this.
That's right. Yeah, yeah,
It was an interesting way to play that scene.
yeah. And then Kirk just gives the order, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I also agree. Yeah, the part where they're backing out and Scotty's trying to get the space doors open, and the whole thing is
Yeah. And
Right.
the Excelsior sputters out after
Yes.
the big buildup
The
for
big bell
turning
duck.
on the transwarp drive.
Well, it's
Again,
a
in the theater, that was just an explosive moment of laughter. It was
yes, it
just great.
was.
Yeah.
And on good Hello Captain or whatever it said
Oh yeah.
when the
The,
kid
the the little mockery that
yes.
that Scotty didn't need to do.
Right. That's right.
He just threw it in there.
Well, and as we all know from Voyager, it's a good thing they didn't go to transwarp drive. They would all turn to salamanders.
Well, there
So
you
it's
go.
he just
Right.
saved them all from that. Anyway,
Horny salamanders.
horny salamanders at that. Um,
It just makes sense that
it
that's what would
just makes
happen.
sense. Um, so yeah, and then they escape. Um, then we go to the Genesis planet again, and the Klingons arrive and accidentally take out the Grissom with one shot. Again, a
Yeah.
great scene. He tells Krug tells the guy to target the engines only,
Hmm.
and he fires and blows the whole damn ship up. At which point he
Right.
goes, "Lucky shot, sir," and then Krug kills him. Um,
But
so
especially painful disintegration, it looked like.
yes, yes, it does indeed. Yeah, those Klingon disruptors at the time didn't look like any fun. And we get a variety of things that Klingons go to the planet. They, of course, there's a great scene where the eel thing
Hmm.
tries to choke Krug. He kills it with his bare hands, and then he radios at
Right.
the ship and says, "Nothing happening here." That's
Right. Yes. Yeah,
nothing
but he
going
has to
on.
show off to his crew what a
Of course,
badass he
of
is.
course. We find that during this scene, the Spock is aging rapidly and eventually goes through Pon farr, which may have made no sense to people who didn't watch Star Trek, but we can kind of figure out something's going on. We also find out that David put proto matter in the Matrix to make the Genesis device work, which is why
Mhm.
the planet was falling apart.
So can we go back to Ponfar just for a second?
Please,
That was one of those throwaway things in the movie that worked at the time,
mm-hmm.
or Pornfar.
Porn
I
farm.
put in my notes softcore Ponfar scene. Um,
Just finger stuff.
Yeah, just finger stuff. So, but it was just like, okay, this makes sense. You're accelerating the aging process. We've already known from the original series, the Theodore Sturgeon famous episode,
Yes.
that's what happens to the Vulcans. And anyway,
Wasn't it
just
DC Fontana?
was it DC Fontana who did that one?
I think it was actually. Mock Time, I think so.
Mock time? Okay.
We'll
Um,
figure it out later.
we'll figure it out. But I'm right, so we'll just validate it. Anyway, but it didn't have to be in there, but it was one of those things, again, a little throwaway thing for the
Nope,
Star
you're
Trek.
right. You're right. Theodore Sturgeon, you are
Yeah,
correct, sir.
yeah.
You are correct.
Um, and it didn't have to be there, but it was just, it's one of those things like if you're a Star Trek fan and you're in the theater and you're nodding along, you're totally hooked into this movie
Oh, sure.
by things like that.
Yes, you are. No, it was really, it was well
Yeah.
done. Yeah. And what did you think about the proto matter as a plot device?
Um, yeah, I mean, it does beg the question, like, what did David's mother know about
Yes,
this?
I that was one of the things that I always think about. Yeah. She's kind of
Yeah,
left out of the whole thing.
but that he took shortcuts, that he turned out to be as arrogant as he accused his father of being.
That part was pretty good. Yeah.
Like comparing that to his outrage at his father reprogramming the Kobayashi Maru simulation.
Yes.
It's like you cheated. Well, of course you did too.
Yes.
Yeah,
So cheating is genetic, is
it
what you're
was pretty
saying.
good. It's a little undercut by the actor.
I agree. Yeah.
He was not the best actor
No, he was not.
with not the best name. Merritt Buttrick. Which always sounds like a punishment. Young man, you merit Buttrick.
Oh dear. Yes. I also kind of felt like it was. I wanted it left. Carol Marcus gets there's a question mark about that. And it was a whole team of
Yeah,
scientists. It wasn't just
exactly.
David.
Like they must have all known that they were using
And so
protomatter.
there's that. And then the other part is, in some ways, it feels like it's setting up. I agree with you. The positive part is this interesting parallel with Kirk is there.
Right.
Although in some ways, it almost feels like when he dies, it's not as big of a deal because, well, he kind of brought it on himself, didn't he? I don't think the movie says that exactly, but I think it makes it easier to make David disposable in some ways.
Well, and it also helps solve the problem of the Genesis device,
Yes, it
which would
does.
be this galaxy-changing sort of technology.
Yeah, forget the
Uh,
Death Star. We have a torpedo.
well, yeah, that we could just, again, they could make planets.
Yeah, the Klingons aren't
Um,
wrong. It's pretty devastating.
right. Yeah, and I thought that was one of the smartest things in the script is like, we saw this in Star Trek 2 as this amazing wonder,
Mhm.
that you can turn, these dead moons into gardens of Eden. But yeah, if you fire that at an inhabited planet, it's a super weapon.
Which McCoy pointed out in the first
Yeah,
film.
he did. He did point it out in the first film, but it's like, and then other people figured that
Yeah,
out too.
right.
Yeah.
So, which makes me think about an interesting parallel to some of the monster movies we watched and all in the
Hmm.
1950s about the way in which science can be both a salvation and also a destruction.
Yeah.
So
It's
the
science
Enterprise,
with an exclamation point.
yeah,
Science.
which will blind you, no doubt.
Yeah.
Um, so then the Enterprise shows up, and there's this great confrontation with the Klingons. Again, more side-eye acting, right? There's the great
Mhm.
scene where they overhear on the planet Grissom, this is Enterprise calling, and David hears it
Right.
and hears that's Kirk and gives Savick the aha, and we're going to get
Hmm.
saved side eye, which I thought was pretty
Right.
good. Um, so the battle, I think the battle's pretty cool because there's a lot of bluffing going on both sides.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And the Klingon commander's not dumb.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's small ship, small crew complement. Theoretically, the Enterprise should best them with no problem whatsoever.
Yeah. Like the way that Krug says, "Huh, put him on screen."
Yeah,
Like, I don't know why we're talking at this point, but
that's right.
okay.
That's right. That's a great example. Yeah.
Yeah. But another really, kind of exciting scene that,
Yes.
that they figure out intelligently that
Hmm.
there's somebody there. They quickly figure out it's a cloaking device.
Yes.
Kind of made sense that the whole, jury-rigged way that the ship was set up with the automation that Scotty put in was probably not going to, carry
Right.
them through a battle.
Yeah. I didn't
Uh,
expect to take us into combat.
yeah,
Yeah. And then, of course, we get again, I think, to continue this theme from Star Trek 2, Kirk finds a way, right?
right.
So he tricks the Klingons that he's going to surrender the ship. They initiate the destruct sequence, which, again, nerds would love, was from Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. So it's
Mhm.
another Easter egg. And then, they escape. And then again, and I, at the time, it wasn't quite as emotional as Spock's death, but it was a pretty big deal to watch the Enterprise blow
It was
up.
a gut punch.
Yeah.
And there were two gut punches in quick succession. I mean, I didn't really grieve over
Oh
David
yeah, I
being
meant to mention
killed.
David's death. Yes.
Yeah, but man, that was one of Shatner's best scenes.
No, yeah,
Filthy
that
Klingon bastard killed my son.
yes.
That was great. And then he stumbles and
The way he stumbles
falls. Yeah.
backwards is really great,
And that
and
he's
it
just kind of like chanting that,
yes,
because he
yes,
can't quite grapple with the idea that they've murdered his son. Good scene.
it's
Really
a
good
great
scene.
scene,
And then
and
the
not that
destruction of the Enterprise is just like,
yeah,
oh my God, I'm actually seeing this happen.
right. It's always a
The,
bluff, right?
right.
And when they watch it, it's a great scene when they watch it streak down into the atmosphere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Kirk says, "My God, Bones, what have I done?" And he says, "What you always do, turn death into a fighting chance to live," which is again the same theme as
Yes.
I don't believe in the no-win scenario.
Right. And
But
and
but there's a cost to it, is I think is important.
yeah, absolutely. And the way that they showed like the saucer section disintegrating,
Yes,
and then it tumbles out of control. And as you saw, as you said, that sort of meteor-like
yes,
descent through the atmosphere. That was like a moment when you're thinking about all the times you watch Star Trek, and at the in the opening credits, the Enterprise would
hmm
swoosh past
yes,
and away, and all the establishing shots of the Enterprise going into orbit. It's like this is a character who's died.
that's right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a bubble bursting in space, as
Right.
explosions often are in these cases.
Right. And
When,
and, and,
when
and again,
well,
this is a movie when I remember first watching it, just thinking from start to practically finish, even though the finish was a little predictable. I don't know where this movie's actually
right.
going. I may have an idea about the destination,
Hmm.
but I don't know exactly how they're going to get there and what they're going to throw away in the process of making this trek.
No pun intended.
Pun intended.
Oh, pun intended. Excuse me.
Pun
My
intended.
bad. At any rate.
Not giving me enough
So,
credit for
um,
a really stupid joke. Okay.
so then eventually there's a confrontation on the planet between Kirk and Krug. And this fight I found, I remember I've noticed it many times, but this is maybe amongst the most 80s part of this movie.
Mhm.
It is all practical effects, including a very lame collapse of a cliff where you can sort of see it kind of sliding down on its whatever.
Mhm.
But lots of practical effects, a lot of fire, and apparently, I read that there's that one scene where the Earth kind of goes up and it sends one of them flying. There was supposed to be
Yeah.
a whole lot more of that, but those things wouldn't work the way they were supposed to. There was supposed to be a lot of the rocks like flying up in the air, but
Right. It was still pretty impressive, I have to
it
say.
was, except for
Yeah.
the cliff. But yeah, it was, and it was very
Yeah.
kinetic, and it felt like they were in a fight.
Yeah. I mean, that's all done on a soundstage with rocks
Yes.
shooting up out of the ground and trees
Yep.
on fire and so forth. And I
Hmm.
really love the shot when, he's kicked Krug
Yes.
off the precipice and he
Yes.
looks back and there's kind of the scene with like the sun rising or setting
Yes.
and, the planet kind
Hmm.
of turning into, volcanic nightmare.
Yes.
That was just like a wonderful little shot right there.
I agree.
Yeah.
So they eventually get to the Klingon ship and are able to commandeer it and go to Vulcan. At Vulcan, they
Hmm.
do climb the steps of Mount Seleia, and
Right.
Sarek asks Talar, the Vulcan priestess, to rejoin Spock's Katra to his body,
Hmm.
which apparently is not something that's happened in some time. And eventually, this works, and we
Right.
have a set of dialogue between Spock and Kirk, which includes some of the recreation of the scene we saw at the very beginning of the movie.
Hmm.
And then Spock's realization that his name is Jim, and maybe it gets a little dusty in here at that point, and the music swells and the movie ends. Thoughts
Hmm.
about this scene?
I really enjoyed how alien the Vulcan seemed
Mm-hmm.
in this.
Yep, agreed.
Um, you know, I guess Dame Judith Anderson was a favorite of everybody on the set,
Mm,
as the kind of the Vulcan High Priestess or whatever her official
yes,
title was. And I thought she did a good job. I mean, I think I liked some of the other people they hired, who were not necessarily from the United States or Britain,
right,
to play Vulcans and seemed a little bit more different
right,
than
right,
humans. But the whole scene was good, and it wasn't again too long. Right? We knew what's going to happen, and
right.
then the way that it ends with Jim, your name is Jim,
Yes,
on that very personal level, terrific, and
yes.
also. Well, anyway, let me get ahead of myself. So go ahead.
No, no. I thought it was one thing I read doing some research for the podcast that I had not read before was that apparently Nimoy was insistent that the final scene had to take place on Vulcan. That
Mhm.
there was some discussion that they might just have medical technobabble on the Klingon ship to refuse the body, which would have been, I think, a disservice.
Right.
But I think this was important that they went back to Vulcan and that it was done this way. I thought it was a very effective. And it is dramatic and it does hit you in the feels, I think, in an
Yeah.
appropriate way at the end.
Yeah. And the scene between actually with Sarek and Kirk,
Yes.
where Sarek is saying, after he had really laid into Kirk
Yes.
in the first part of the movie,
Right.
then saying, my God, you've done this here
At
is
what
just
cost?
incredible, but at what
Yeah.
cost? I mean, that was a very effective little exchange,
Yes.
I thought.
Yes. I thought so too. And actually, I think that Nimoy and Shatner both did a really good job of acting in that last scene.
Yeah.
Although, there is a when Spock arches his eyebrow at the end when everyone's surrounding him. Apparently, that was done in the moment. That wasn't in the script. But the question
Huh.
is, if you're the director and you ad lib, is it actually an ad lib? I don't know.
An unanswerable question.
Yes,
So,
Schrodinger's ad lib.
so I have an unanswerable question.
Okay.
So when Spock mind melded with McCoy at the end of Star Trek Two, and he puts his Katra
Hmm.
into McCoy, but he's still walking around.
That's a good point.
Is he a zombie?
I, I don't understand Vulcan mysticism,
I
and
guess.
you don't have to believe. I don't know. It's a great question. It's a
Okay.
great question. Yeah,
We'll just never know.
just never know.
Okay.
Especially since he remembers, it's funny, I never thought about this before. He remembers dialogue that happened after the mind meld.
Yes, that's true.
Hmm.
The ship, is it safe?
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe it was Vulcan Bluetooth. I don't know.
I don't know.
Hmm. Well, I mean, and we can sort of move on to a variety of. Was there anything? Well, I'll say this before. We'll just talk about general assessments of the movie, but before we even talk about that, is there anything that I didn't touch on that you wanted to comment on, scene wise or performance wise?
I don't think so, except I just have to mention watching it again, I was very struck by the 80s hair.
Oh yeah, I was too. What? In what
I didn't
way?
get that I didn't get that feeling from the previous movie or the
Yeah.
next movie, but there was
See,
something just about the
that's
hair.
funny. I felt like the next movie felt even more 80s to me than this one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. But the hair, yeah. Esteban's hair, it's that helmet hair thing of the 80s. They
Yeah.
all look like
Very
that.
coiffed.
There's yeah, very much so. There's definitely that element to it. Um,
And I thought the other thing I want to mention is James Horner, to go back
yes.
to
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
music, which is, I think, one of the big accomplishments of this movie is his score.
Yes. Oh, great,
Because
great.
at the time, watching it again, all the rewatches I did of scenes or the whole movie in between, it's very much action movie music,
Hmm.
but it's weirdly non-intrusive. I mean, it's kind of perfect. Like this, the stealing of the Enterprise from
Oh, it's
space dock.
fantastic. Yeah.
It's there, and it really does genuinely add to the excitement,
Yes, it
but
does.
not in a really intrusive, annoying way that was true of
Agreed.
a lot of action movie music at the time and still through today. And I was looking at James Horner's credits, and a lot of my favorite movies. Like the Civil War movie Glory. He
Hmm.
did the soundtrack for, or the second Alien movie Aliens, and
Hmm.
it had that same quality to it. It's like you knew it was there.
Right.
You might even want to listen to the soundtrack afterwards. I listened to the soundtrack of Glory quite a lot,
Hmm.
especially the music at the end credits. I he's just a terrific talent.
No, and he died young, as I recall.
Yeah, he died in
Um,
2015. I saw.
but yeah, the like I've described in previous podcasts, I was a soundtrack kid, and I really, I loved all the John Williams stuff, and I had these
Mhm.
on vinyl, and I've had all the Star Trek soundtracks, at least through the up and through uh, maybe First Contact, but these two have always stuck with me, and I think that Jerry Goldsmith's work in the motion picture and in Star Trek Five is quite good, and I do listen to the motion picture soundtrack on occasion. But these
Mhm.
two really have always really stuck with me as amongst my most favorite soundtracks of all time. So let's a few general assessment of the film issues. I would just say I would reiterate that I think that this movie fits really well with Kirk's arc that was discussed again in the previous two movies, but especially a combination of the what is his best destiny, but also his heroic capacity to make
Right.
things happen in difficult circumstances. I think this movie has heart. He has humor. It's an entertaining movie, right? Um,
Well, and it hits on the theme of friendship, which is so
yes,
much the theme of Star Trek, the original
agreed.
series, right? We watched it for the big ideas in episodes and, you know, the interesting plot twists occasionally, but really fundamentally, like you had the big three
Yes,
characters and the dynamics among the three of them, and then all the other characters whom we really grew up with and loved. And to play on that particular note as hard as it did worked.
yeah, it did.
Yeah.
So you had suggested that we create a new rate this Trek system that we can
Rate
apply
this
to
Trek
these movies.
since
Rate
we
this
are
Trek.
such big Trek fans. Right. So I divided it up into the following categories. So big ideas, since this is
Hmm.
science fiction,
Right.
you have you know berserk war machines
Hmm.
carving up planets. You have the we mentioned Ponfar, the Vulcan physiology that is their great secret. Things like that. Fun factor, I think that's always true in any whatever thing you watch. But I
Right.
think I think we're talking about Star Trek, so there's a lot of fun in Star Trek, as we kind of belabored a little bit in our description of Star Trek 3. The feels, how does this pluck at our heartstrings? I think that's a good thing, whether we're talking about um, you know, Picard playing on a panpipe at the end of an episode or whatever. There's a lot of
Right.
feels in Star Trek. The quality of the filmmaking,
Hmm.
not just the special effects, but the direction and
Hmm.
other aspects, and just sort of the general Trekness. Would people these days arguing on the internet like to talk about this? Like, is this a movie or a TV episode that really feels like Star Trek? All
Right.
right. So let's go to big ideas.
So big ideas, and the
On
funny
a
thing
scale of
is,
1 to 10, how many points would you give it? One being the low end of the scale.
so I gave it an 8, um,
Okay.
and you gave it a.
A 5.
So I realized in doing this that we didn't talk about what the categories really meant,
That's okay.
which is fine. But this is,
Everybody hearing us talk about it now
of
can
course.
kind of help understand what we were
So,
up
because
to with this rating
I,
scale.
on the one hand, I agree with you. There aren't really big sci-fi. Well, there's some sci-fi. So the two big ideas that I thought they were huge, and that's why I gave it an 8. Friendship is a huge, big idea in
Right.
this movie to me,
Hmm.
and life and death, which is kind of a big idea.
Yeah.
So, and then you can throw in the sci-fi element of it, which is the Genesis wave itself, is a pretty big
Hmm.
idea. So that's why I gave it as high a score as I did. But you gave it a 5. So what'd you think about that?
Right. I mean, I said I wouldn't from a science fiction perspective.
Right,
Uh,
and which is fair.
I was, yeah, there were things, but I wouldn't say there were it was at the level of the Doomsday Machine,
Mhm. I agree.
um, or City on the Edge of Forever,
Hmm.
things like that. So I gave it a 5, and we'll thrash through this. We'll
No,
kind
no,
of get closer to
I
common understanding. All right. So what did you give it for fun factor?
I give it a 9.
Oh, I gave it a 9 too. This is a fun movie.
It's again for a movie, as I commented earlier, for a movie that is ostensibly as serious a topic as it is, it really is a humorous and fun film. It's
Hmm.
a bit of a romp, especially, I mean, Stealing the Enterprise, but all that goes around that is great. It's I found it quite fun.
Yeah. Okay. So next is the feels.
I gave it a 9.
I gave it an 8. I could be talked into a 9. And it
I
wasn't and it wasn't actually for me just because of bringing Spock back, because
Right.
again, I kind of felt like that was where things were headed. But seeing the Enterprise blown up,
The Enterprise blow up was a huge feels
wow.
moment, and I think that I do find the scene at the end affecting. I mean, I could see an 8, but it certainly is up there with the feels.
Yeah, and just again, seeing how important
But David dies
these
too.
characters,
There's that scene too. So
yeah, but seeing how important these people feel about each other,
yes,
how important each other are in their lives, I think that was a big part of the feels.
right. When they all agree to go with him, I think also
Yeah,
mattered.
yeah, yeah. We're wasting time.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Filmmaking.
I gave it a 9.
I gave it a 9.
You
Uh,
know, I think the directing's
Terrific
quite good.
script. Yeah,
The
the
script's great.
directing's good. Good, well edited, well paced. Good. Yeah, good
There,
acting.
yeah, there isn't, I don't know, maybe if I stop and thought about it, I could figure somebody out. The cast is great too. And you may have said that, but I can't think of a performance that I'm like, that didn't, what's, I mean, I thought all the main characters were great.
Yeah, Merrick
And
Buttrick again. Not
well, okay, that's
he's sort
fair.
of like a TV actor,
Yeah,
and
he is.
you
That's
know,
fair. That's fair. I agree
yeah,
with that. But I think everybody else, that's a fair example. The Klingons are
Eh,
all great.
yeah.
The other
Christopher
supporting
Lloyd was a
characters are great.
surprisingly good
I just
as the Klingon
fantastic. Yeah,
commander.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, and general Trekness.
I gave it a 10, but I think partly it's about trying to figure out what Trekness means. I felt like in some ways, and this could be a critique of the movie, so much of it requires understanding Star Trek to begin with that it was therefore had a high Trekness value to me in that regard.
Okay.
Because it's not as standalone as some of the other, but that may not be what you meant when you said Trekness.
No, that's fine. Actually upgraded mine to a 10 when you said that. I
Yeah.
think this is an ultimately Trek movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Trek to its bones, Trek to its DNA, Trek to whatever level of metaphor is appropriate in this case. All right, so that gives me a total of 41 out of 50. How many
I've got a
points does
45,
no?
but I'm a soft touch apparently.
You're an easy grader.
I'm not sure my students would agree with that, but yeah, I think in some ways that may be true. Um, okay. A couple of wrap-up questions, and then we'll talk about the merch thing. So, how much of a standalone movie is this, do you think?
Hmm. Standalone, like you had
Like,
to have
just watch the
seen the
movie. Yeah.
Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
I I think it's actually more than I thought before you asked that question. Because
Yeah.
when we were talking earlier, when you
Hmm.
said like you went with somebody,
Yeah.
I again the really deft way it established everything at the beginning. Okay, Spock is important. He died,
Right.
sacrificed himself. Everybody's out of sorts. Um, I thought it was more than I would have rated. I don't know exactly like what's the absolutely correct answer to that question, but
Right.
I would say more than I would have expected myself to say before we started having this conversation. How about you?
I think that's fair. I mean, I think ultimately it is a middle chapter of a trilogy in its own
Yeah.
kind of way. And
Mhm.
therefore, um, although I think you could watch this movie better by itself than you could watch The Two Towers by itself, just to pick another example.
Oh yeah, I was thinking of the Two
There is
Towers
a
when you said that.
beginning, you can at least understand what's going on, and there's a definitive end to this movie
Right.
in a way that a middle chapter often doesn't have. But I
Mhm.
mean, I never would say, hey, you've never watched Star Trek before? I got the one to start you with. This is not the one that I would start you with,
No,
right?
no.
And so in that sense, I mean, I think it serves its role as a sequel and better than a standalone movie, but I could see watching it without a standalone movie.
So what would you start with?
I think I might start with Star Trek 2 if you're going to pick a movie.
Yeah, I definitely pick Star Trek too.
I think that's a good entry point in a variety of ways.
Right.
Um, it's always hard to know where to start people with anything, but yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
probably the best. I figure if you watch that and you enjoy it, then you could recommend either to keep watching these movies
Mhm.
or to branch out to specific episodes of the TV show and then go from there. But so, and you already touched this before, but I thought it's worth asking. So you and I have often eye rolled over the idea of characters not staying dead.
Mhm.
What was your thoughts about this character not staying dead at the time, at least, and maybe even now?
Mixed. I was a little embarrassed at myself for wanting Spock back because another part of my brain was saying it's okay if Spock were dead.
Right,
Yeah, it's still going to be a good movie series. It's,
right,
if they ever do a TV show, they don't need to bring Spock back for that.
right.
Again, I had a little bit of cognitive dissonance about it, I have to say.
I think that's kind of the way I look at it too.
Yeah.
I mean, part of me is like stakes are you should have stakes in fiction. But then, yeah, I mean, it's Spock for crying out loud. I like Spock. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. He was my favorite character when I was a
Yeah.
kid watching the original
So
series.
how about merch? Do you have any merch?
Oh, yes. So I'll mention two bits of merch. One was, since have always been a big board game fan, there was a Starship Combat Simulator by the same people who did uh, the Star Trek role-playing game at the time,
Okay.
FASA.
Yeah, yeah.
And you had the Enterprise and the Bird of Prey, and
Right.
it had these little wheels that you would twist
Oh,
around
wow. I don't
to.
remember this at all.
Anyway, I had that. I think I played it twice. I played it
So,
with someone, and like the Bird of Prey fired a shot, and the Enterprise blew up immediately. It's like, was this fun? Um,
well, there you go.
all right. How about you?
So
What did you have?
two things that I know that I had. I had the official movie magazine. You know, they used to have those
Oh,
magazines.
right. Yeah.
I think I still have it, as a matter of fact. I meant to go look for it, and I forgot to do so. And I had, of course, as I've already mentioned, the soundtrack on vinyl.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh, you know what? I think there was also a supplement for the Star Trek role-playing game about Star Trek 3, like filling in all the things that the movie added, which is a good way of concretizing the fact that this movie did add a lot.
right, right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What would you have wanted to have?
Well, so I think an Excelsior Christmas ornament, and I
Okay.
think just to express my Excelsior love
Hmm.
against all the naysayers and the nattering nabobs who didn't like the design.
The pregnant
People
guppy
like
people.
you. Um, but I would also say like Excelsior is the sort of thing you would imagine someone saying at Christmas time.
It's a Stanleyism.
It's a Stanleyism, like ever upwards, I think is what it means. So yeah, I'd go for the Excelsior Christmas ornament. How about
Sounds
you?
good. I mean, I always do something similar. I just starship miniatures from all the ships in the show. I just love
Yeah.
all the ships. I do like the Excelsior. It's not my overall favorite, but it's certainly become a classic
Well,
without a
there
doubt.
were the micro machines. Did you
Yes,
ever
which I
get
never
those?
had. I never did.
I had those, and that was almost like the point where I said, "Man, I've bought a lot of crap over the
Yeah,
years."
yeah, yeah. Well, I was going to
I
ask.
have to decide what I really want to keep.
I was going to ask because you've made a reference to this before, I think, but I know you've had, still have, and had a lot of games. And how
Yes.
many of those games did you only play two or three times?
Um, on advice of counsel, I have to not answer that question. Quite a few, quite a few,
Fair enough. Fair
quite a
enough.
few.
Well, I think that brings to the conclusion of our discussion of Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. Tune in next week where we're going to talk about Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. Thanks for listening here on Ancient Geeks. Have a good week.
Well, before the Genesis planet is blown to smithereens and us with it, it's time to be away in our stolen bird of prey. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, please leave us a review on the podcast app of your choice, or just like and subscribe. You can also drop us a line at someancientgeeks@gmail.com, and you can find us on Substack under someancientgeek.substack.com. Look for us also on Reddit, Facebook, Blue Sky, and other social media outlets. All content copyright 2025, Tom Grant and Stephen Taylor. Music by Reversed Image, whom you can find on Pixabay. See you next time.
That green-blooded son of a bitch. It's his revenge for all those arguments he lost.